It is certainly a great joy and a genuine privilege to be with you tonight. I try my best to let you know how happy I am to be in your presence. You know, happiness goes a long way, and it's often been said, and I believe it is the case, that happiness is contagious. And certainly we, as the body of Christ, those who have been redeemed from the curse and the power of sin, we have so much to be happy about. And I pray that as you live your life this week, you will be happy. I know that there are circumstances in many people's lives, myself included, that tend to drag us down and make us depressed and sad. But remember all that God has done for you. And remember how much He loves you. And let that be cause enough for you to be happy this week. I have to apologize to you this morning if I seemed a little off-kilter. I suppose that was the case, especially in the Bible class hour with some issues that were happening. If you weren't here, of course, you don't know what I mean by that. But I apologize if that's the case, and hopefully tonight will go much more smoothly and much better. I appreciate very much our song service tonight. I always do. I felt our song service was pretty good tonight. And not only did it sound good, but the song selection led me to believe that Russell's been snooping around my house or in the office. Because a lot of those songs that we sang may not directly apply to our lesson tonight, but certainly will tie in. And I might point some of those out as we get to those portions in the lesson tonight. We have been talking for the past couple or 3 weeks about being a servant. And we will continue that line of thinking at least for tonight and next week, and maybe for another week or two. Again, I have not determined that just yet. The first week we were talking about being servants. We began with dealing with preparing to be a servant and how we can be better prepared to do that, to be a servant, to do the work that God calls us to do. Last week we talked about serving the sick, and we noticed and saw clearly how Jesus was a servant to those who were sick. And then we turned our attention to the fact that He calls us to do the same, to serve those who are sick, and especially those who are of the household of faith. Tonight we want to consider another area of our service, and that is serving the multitudes. Now that's a rather broad topic, and I understand that very clearly tonight. And as has been the case especially last week, it will be so tonight, that we cannot really serve the multitudes in the same way that Jesus did. Because Jesus did do certain things for those multitudes that we do not have the physical capacity to do. But certainly there is a way, there are many ways in which we can serve the multitudes, some of which are ways in which Jesus did that. However, before we begin there, and if you want to be turning to our text, it's Mark chapter 3 once again tonight. Mark chapter 3, and we'll begin in verse 7 in just a moment. But as you're turning there, I've tried to begin this series of sermons each week by pointing out a particular concept or a particular Bible verse that shares with us something to do with being a servant. And tonight I have two that I want to share with you. The first one is 1 Corinthians chapter 9 and verse 19. And this is particularly interesting in relationship to our lesson tonight because it's there where the Apostle Paul says this, 1 Corinthians 9 verse 19, "For though I am free from all men, I have made myself a servant to all, that I might win the more." I find that interesting, and if you read the surrounding verses there, you see exactly what Paul meant by that. He says, "I became all things to all men, that I might by all means save some." But in that discussion, I find it very interesting that he shares with us how he did that. "I became a servant to all, that I might win the more." And I believe firmly tonight, and I suggest to you, friends and brethren, that if we want to win more souls to Christ, we need to do a better job of serving people. And that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes. The second verse as we begin tonight is from the mouth of Jesus in John 12 and verse 26. And it's there where Jesus is teaching His disciples about being servants. And he simply says to them, John 12 and verse 26, if anyone serves me, that's the key word, the operative word. If anyone serves me, let him follow me. And I guess we talked about that in the first week in preparing to be a servant, because we dealt with how we need to follow the example that Jesus left in being a servant. And so Jesus says, if anyone serves me, let him follow me. Not just enough to say that you're serving Jesus, or even to do the things that he did if you're not following him. If anyone serve me, let him follow me. And where I am, he continues, there my servant will be also. And if anyone serves me, him my Father will honor. And that's something I don't know if I've made enough emphasis on, that in serving these groups of people, for instance, last week we talked about the sick. Tonight we're talking about the multitudes. Next week we're going to talk about another group of people that we should serve. But it's important that we don't lose sight of the fact that in serving those people, we're serving Jesus. We are serving God. And in so doing, God will honor us. Now turn your attention to Mark chapter 3. We looked at a portion of Mark chapter 3 last week. And we're going to look at another portion tonight, this week beginning in verse 7. Jesus withdrew his disciples to the sea, and a great multitude from Galilee followed him, and from Judea and Jerusalem and Idumea and beyond the Jordan. And those from Tyre and Sidon, a great multitude, when they heard how many things he was doing, came to him. So he told his disciples that a small boat should be kept ready for him because of the multitude, lest they should crush him. For he healed many, so that as many as had afflictions pressed about him to touch him. And the unclean spirits, whenever they saw him, fell down before him and cried out, saying, you are the Son of God. But he sternly warned them that they should not make him known. And he went up on the mountain and called to him those he himself wanted. And they came to him. Then he appointed 12 that they might be with him, and that he might send them out to preach, and to have power to heal the sicknesses, and to cast out demons. And these are their names: Simon, to whom he gave the name Peter, James the son of Zebedee, and John the brother of James, to whom he gave the name Boanerges, that is, sons of thunder, Andrew, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James the son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, Simon the Canaanite, and Judas Iscariot, who also betrayed him. And they went into a house. Now you're going to see how this relates to our idea and the concept of serving the multitudes. Because what Jesus is doing here is preparing his disciples to do just that, to serve the multitudes. Now, in verses 7 through 12, we see that Jesus' fame is spreading. He's getting more popular. The people are learning about who he is and what he can do. And many of them are probably following him for nothing more than to have their afflictions and illnesses healed and cured. And Jesus was well aware of that. And that's why he says to them, keep a boat ready, because these people are going to come in, and I don't want to be crushed by these people. I've got to be ready. I've got to be prepared. And I find it interesting that these multitudes of people who continue to flock to him, all the way from the cities of Tyre and Sidon, they come to him just hoping that they can touch him. And that reminds me of the woman who had the issue of blood, who just wished to touch the hem of his garment. You see, people clearly understood, if they put much thought into it at all, who this man was and what he could do. And what he was doing ultimately was serving them. And so in the following verses, we find Jesus calling these disciples and appointing them to this work. What does he do for them? He doesn't just say to them, all right, you 12, you come and follow me. Do what I do, say what I say. No, that's not what Jesus does. He calls them to himself and wants them to prepare themselves to preach the gospel, to prepare themselves to heal sicknesses, to prepare themselves to cast out demons. And as I understand this, I know too much about Jesus to say that he simply said, you're going to do this, and didn't show them how or tell them anything about it. He helped them prepare for this work. He wanted them to see the multitudes as possibilities for conversions. And that's something that maybe we're lacking today. You know, I don't know how many in number these multitudes were. The Bible does not say. But I believe there are about 5,000 people who live in the city of Kingston. Between 5,000 and 6,000 people. About 50,000 people in Roane County. I say that's a multitude of people, don't you? And when you look out into that multitude, if you don't go out in the outer parts of Roane County, if you just stay right here in Kingston, you see a multitude of people every day. And the question is, are you prepared to make an impact in their life? Are you preparing yourself daily to go to these people, to preach the gospel to them? Because that's what Jesus desires of those who will serve Him and follow Him. Now, with that in mind, I realize that sometimes our responsibilities can seem overwhelming. I realize that there are many things in your life to which you devote a lot of time. If you are still working, work gets a lot of your time and attention, doesn't it? We need to be careful how much time we devote to work and balance that with how much time we devote to serving the Lord. Because I never read in my Bible anywhere about a man working and thereby receiving honor from God. And yet I read from you in the Bible just a few moments ago in John chapter 12, Jesus Himself saying that if you serve Me and follow Me, God will honor you. We might feel sometimes as if there's nothing that we can do to reach the world. You might feel so small and you say to yourself, I'm just one person. What in the world can I do? What difference can I make? And I imagine maybe these 12 men that Jesus called His disciples, His apostles, they may have felt the same way. What difference can we make? What impact can we have in the world? And yet as Jesus is preparing them for this great work, and later as they will go out and do this great work, they very clearly understand the plan that Jesus had in mind, that He was with them, that He was helping them do this work. And the same thing is true today, although that help might come in a little bit of a different form. I want you to notice 4 ideas with me tonight. These are short, concise points I want you to notice with me about Jesus serving the multitudes. And then the last point deals with how He served them. Well, they all deal with that anyways. The first one is this: Jesus served the multitudes with compassion. He served those multitudes with compassion. Now, to anyone else who was in this crowd of people who was pressing up against Jesus, the crowd may have seemed to be a great nuisance. People may have looked from the outside and say, well, why in the world is Jesus giving His time to these people? And later on in Mark chapter 6, where we find Jesus feeding that multitude of people from such a small beginning, I imagine people are thinking to themselves, this is such an inconvenience. You know, we've been studying the book of Matthew, and we just talked about this a few weeks ago, how Jesus wanted to go up on the mountain to pray, and that was hindered by this multitude coming to Him who were hungry. You see, people may have seen this crowd as a nuisance, but not Jesus. Jesus looks at this crowd with compassion, and He says, I've got to prepare some men to go out and to tend to the needs of these people. Mark 6 and verse 31, this is the scene around Jesus feeding that multitude. He said to them, come aside by yourselves to a deserted place and rest a while, for there were many coming and going, and they didn't have time to eat. That seems like an inconvenience when you're so busy working for the Lord that you yourself don't even have time to eat. And maybe that's never been the case for any of us in this room. I really don't know. But Jesus and His disciples didn't see it as an inconvenience. They didn't see it as a nuisance. They want to look at this multitude with compassion. They want to do everything in their power to help them. And so, in Matthew 14 and verse 15, this is Matthew's account of the same event. When it was evening, Matthew says, His disciples
On behalf of the Lawnville Road Church of Christ, I want to thank you for joining us today for our worship. If you ever have an opportunity, we invite you to join us at our physical location at 1301 Lawnville Road in Kingston, Tennessee. We hope you will come and experience the simplicity of New Testament Christianity to learn about God and to become a part of His family. If you have questions, if you would like to know more about the Bible, or if you would like a home Bible study, feel free to contact us by calling 865-717-0444. Or for more information, please visit our website at www.lawnvilleroadcoc.org. Again, we thank you, and we hope you have a blessed day.